Hi, this is me, Wayne, from swimmingcyclingrunning.com. Butterfly is one of the hardest strokes, and because of that, we actually produce some of our most popular videos explaining butterfly and how to swim it. And one of the huge problems with butterfly and all strokes is that you actually want to grab the water as far out in front of you as you can and drive it backwards, because you want to go forward. So all of your force has to be directed backwards if you're actually going to be a successful swimmer and a fast swimmer. With butterfly, that's difficult because doing both arms at the same time is actually tiring. And as you tire, what tends to happen is you go more and more vertical to breathe because you're pushing down on the water instead of dragging yourself forward. We're going to go to the computer and show you what I mean. Then we'll come back and we'll have a little discussion again. As we say, with butterfly, we're looking to achieve the maximum possible stroke distance we can. We're just going to slow this down. We have two different swimmers here. One is really trying to reach out and get the maximum distance per stroke, and we'll stop it there. Now you can see he's gone a bit deep, but you can see that his arms are now trying to hold the water so he can push water back. He then drives those arms back, always pushing backwards with his arms and therefore creating forward force. Let's look at that again. You can see from that point on he's trying to drive the water backwards, and never does he do anything else apart from drive himself forward. He's going a touch deep here, but his arms never actually push anything but backwards. So he's trying to grab the water as far out as he can. Now you can see this is well in front of his head, trying to grab the water there, and he's still absolutely trying to grab the water, force it back behind him so that he can drive forward. And as he drives forward, you'll notice his hands come together under his body and then drive out. Grabs the water, drives out. Now let's have a look at that, the second swimmer, and what she does. We can see there's something missing from the front of her stroke. Instead of grabbing the water well out in front of her head, you can see she's dropping her elbows. So by now, effectively, what we have is that her head's there and her elbows are actually back behind her head. So the direction she's pushing may be there or may not be there, but she's only got half the stroke of the swimmer in front. Let's see her as she comes next to us. You can see the elbows are dropping right down, so she never gets a pull in front of her head. She's always dropping those elbows and not grabbing the water out front. So she's having a shorter stroke, and that shorter stroke affects the speed she can go through the water. And it tends, because she's pointing the arms down there as she drops her elbows, you can see the position of her arm and the direction of her push is actually more down than backwards, and there it becomes backwards. That's where she's becoming backwards, and that's where she's driving her out. But where she points her arms down, that way, suddenly the whole body is looking at an angle in the water, and that is driving her legs slightly lower than they should be. You can see that there. And now we have an extreme example of that, where someone is pushing down on the water rather than pushing backwards on the water. We'll just slow motion this for a couple of strokes. And you can see what's happening. The swimmer takes a wide sweep and then goes down with his arms. And you can see that is where all the push is happening, downwards. And that downwards push is dropping the knees down, raising the chest, just to get that head out the water to breathe. And then the push comes, but the push is still very much in that direction. And again, that just drops the whole body into that position, which means the swimmer's trying to drag themselves through the water as a whole body, and the streamline's completely lost. We'll just go forward with that. You can see it happening. The wide sweep, downward push, wide sweep, now it's going to breathe, downward push and up. And you can see that's totally inefficient in terms of butterfly. Here are another two swimmers who have slightly different styles. I've slowed this down. The one on the left is actually pushing her arms downwards. You can see that that is pushing her head up. That's quite natural in a lot of swimmers, and that second kick. Second kick should be occurring now to kick her head out the water, but that's not happening at all. So she's relying on her arms to drag her out the water. So the first part of her stroke is more pushing effectively down than pushing backwards. I should say pushing down than pushing backwards. The swimmer on the right is going very wide and actually is pushing backwards, but is pushing outside the body, so it's a fairly rushed stroke. But you can see she's trying to grab the water ahead of her head, and that's going backwards there as fast as she can. She has a faster stroke, and that compensates a little bit for this wide stroke that she has, which is a touch inefficient. She's still coming underneath her body there slightly, but it's wider than the man we saw earlier, or the boy we saw earlier. So it's wide and forward. Okay, so hopefully that illustrates perfectly what you need to be doing in butterfly as opposed to probably what you're doing. So instead of dropping the elbows and driving up, we want to get the arms out and drive forward. And a way to do that is actually remain flat in the water if you possibly can. And even when you're tired, try and remain flat and drag yourself forward with a second kick, as opposed to start dropping the elbows and pushing yourself upwards. Because the more you undulate in butterfly, the more distance you're actually doing per length. The flatter you are, the shorter distance. Remember, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Hopefully that's helped you with your butterfly. Next week will be something completely different. Enjoy your swimming. Keep well.